Anyway, all right. Searching the internet for seminar materials. So that thing is that in the top of yours as well? The
General search engines, yeah.
no, but is the black bar on the top of yours?
No.
Okay, good. It's in mine, but I can get by with it. The bar that is used to control Zoom is on the top on my machine right now. General search engines. What's a search engine for? Well, the idea is that the various search engines over the years, as long as we've had the internet, have been used to try to find things. And various companies have done this over the range, but the intent is they go out and try to find everything that's on the internet and collect that together, and using various algorithms, make it available for searching by other people. And there are a number of different search engines, and basically the difference has to do with what kind of things they search for, how good their algorithms are in terms of finding anything, and so forth. But most of these search engines can be integrated with an internet browser. So if you're using Chrome or Firefox or Safari, you can integrate these search engines with that to be able to search within your browser. In most cases, you can pick which one is your default search engine. I can demonstrate that when we get to the end and show how you could in fact choose a search engine that you want to use. In this case, for example, common ones, Google, Yahoo, Bing, DuckDuckGo, and I'll say more about some of those things as we go along, are all offer address bar capability. And by address bar, I mean that bar at the top of your browser where you put in addresses to where you want to go. The common kind of search engines around right now are these. There's Google, there's Yahoo, there's Bing, there's DuckDuckGo, there's Wikipedia, and there's Ask. As far as I'm concerned, Yahoo is sort of going away. It's not as much of interest anymore. Google is the one that is the primary one, the historical first one. Bing is associated with Microsoft, and you'll find it by default on the Edge browser. DuckDuckGo is a fairly newcomer to the field, and its intents and purposes are to try to make your searches more hidden from other people rather than making them available. I'll come back at some of these things overall. Wikipedia primarily searches the Wikipedia domain, and Ask is things primarily for asking questions and so forth. For the most part, I use two up there, Google or, okay, let me see if I can do that. Sorry about that. What I'm doing is, Mindy, do you know how to set on the transcription?
Yes, there's a if someone asks you,
Yes.
you can just say yes to that request.
All right, I enabled it. Is that it?
Yep, that'll do it. And it looks like.
Thank you.
All right, good. Okay, we got it. Anyway, in this presentation, I'm going to be sticking with Google search. And the reason I'm doing that is because the most common, it also, in my opinion, is really probably got the best for finding really unusual things. And I'll demonstrate that as I go along. By default, in my browser, it is not the search engine, but I use it for things like I'm doing in this case here. So this just describes what kind of things there. Then what you do is you put into the Google search engine what you're looking for, and it scans what it has stored over all of the years, et cetera, that it has on those particular topics, and gives you back results. And there's usually a whole bunch of things that you can get out of the result of this. I'm also going to talk about 2 or 3 other Google type of applications. The first of these is Google Video. I'll also talk about Google Maps, Google Images, Google Books, I'll point out how to get to what's called advanced Google searching. And finally, I'll do the gem. As far as I'm concerned, I'll talk about Google Scholar. In red are all the addresses to find all of those. In most of those cases, I've got them linked in my browser so I can find them immediately if I want to do afterward. So, search techniques. It's a good idea to have a pretty good idea what you're looking for before you start. In other words, you're picking a topic, and in my case, I'm going to use some examples of some of the things that I have done seminars on. I'm going to give some examples that relate to Mesoamerica, and I'm going to give some samples related to cities and so forth, things that I've been thinking about and searching for information on. So I've got some idea of what I want to look for, but that's what you want to do, is get some idea. You want to put down some questions that you're looking for, what you're trying to find out in terms of your search, and then put it in as few terms as you can to make it simpler to be able to use this. If you use a lot of broad terms, you get a lot of information, some of which may be not pertinent, but it does open the field and allows you to search for things in a broader way. If you narrow things down, you get fewer results, but you get, in many cases, something that might be more relevant. But a couple things in terms of doing searches. First of all, when you're putting something in with a search, and I'll demonstrate this, what you type in is case insensitive. Google, and I assume almost all the other search engines, don't pay attention to capital letters. They're case insensitive. But the search operators, and I'll talk about this a little later, are case sensitive. So, and the point of these things are, if you put something into a query, all the words you put in that query are the things that they will search for and try to find information about. But common words like the ones I have there and so forth, are usually ignored. Google doesn't pay attention to those because they don't necessarily mean anything. Now you can change that, and I'll point out how you can. And in the end, you know, this is not a search engine, it's not a human being, it's a machine. And it can only do with what you give it. So that's the thing. And in fact, one of the areas of interest is that as you go along in a search, you'll hopefully learn and find new places to go with your search. So type in lowercase, keep out the punctuation. In general, there's no need to connect terms with and I'll talk about and in a bit, because by default, Google tries to find all the search terms that are in your query. And again, use singular forms. You don't have to do it in plural. It automatically looks for things in singular and plural. So you don't have to worry about things like such as that. So in the beginning, you want to look at your search topic. And so for my example here, I'm interested in some important information about ancient cities of the world. So I write down some topics that I'm interested in. And out of that, I say a topic of interest to me is cities, ancient, because I'm looking at old things, settlements, which is sort of like equivalent to cities, and archaeology. In this case, I'm looking at old places, so I'm looking at things with archaeology. So those are the topics that I first of all put together with the idea of doing a search. So what I do is I open the Google search browser, and I'll get back at more of this. One way you can get it is to type in that listing there. I'll show you other ways to get at it as well. In many cases, you can do this with just typing it into the address bar. So if you type into the address bar, this thing right here, it'll probably give you a search anyway. But in this case, I opened up the Google search engine and I typed those things in. So having typed those things in, I can now do a Google search. And what do I get? This. There on the top is what I was searching for. There's some things that I'll talk more about listed below that. Down below that, it tells me it's looked at 28 million things in 0.37 seconds. That's what it searched through in terms of finding that. And then it gives me a series of topics that come out from what I was looking for. It picks out all those words. For example, the first one, it was identifying in particular settlements, but it also picked something out that was fairly new. It's a 2021 publication. In fact, later today, I'm going to send that to Kathy because I just found that as a result of this search, and it's interesting relative to our seminar on cities. So that's that. The other thing it commonly does with Google is give you this series of things to expand on what you've asked about. It's saying, oh, you were asking about that. Are these things relative to you? So it gives you some ideas about things to think about. Now, when I do this with DuckDuckGo as an example, it doesn't do this. It doesn't give me this thing. It just gives me this list of all the topics that it comes up with. And so you'll see that, I don't have to go all the way through here, but here's another reference. And if I keep on going down, I'll find a lot more. Now I'll show you this later on when I'm out of my PowerPoint presentation. I'll go through some details on that. And I'll talk about some other things over here. And while I'm at it, and I'll come back again, I truncated this to copy it to put it in my presentation. And there's normally a little gear indicator over here, and I'll come back at that in a bit. So if you want to improve your search, one way you can do it is to use Boolean operators. Okay, Boolean operators are like and, or not. They're in most of these search engines, they can be used to logically change things. So you can say things like Guatemala and Yucatan. And what Google will try to do is to look at both of those things. So there's those three operators. I'll go back and give some explanations of this. And what they're doing is to try to give you a better idea of where you're searching for things. One of the important aspects, again, down here is when you use these terms to be identified as a Boolean operator, they've got to be in capitals. So the and operator tends to narrow a search and make it focused and so forth. In general, I use that example there, looking for LiDAR studies in Guatemala and Yucatan. That should keep you information related to those two areas. I don't often use and in general, it's really not necessary to use and because even without the and there, the Google search engine is going to look for both those terms anyway. So it's not, but it's one of the Boolean operators that you can use in the process. So for example, here, I can't read it because the transcript thing is over it, but I think it says something interesting. Can I move that?
LiDAR, Guatemala, and Yucatan.
Yeah, so it's got the and in it. So what you see is if you look beginning down through these searches, you'll begin to see through them inside both of those kinds of terms. So see, I wonder, can I turn it? Are you still with us? Yeah, it's good. So I just got I can read again. Great fun. And again, it's got suggestions, how does LiDAR explore ancient cities in Guatemala? I mean, most of you may not know what LiDAR is. Maybe I'll say something about it later on, but so it's giving you hints. Google is really good at these kind of things about helping you in your search in the process of going forward. Or is probably a more important Boolean operator. It again connects the two things and it says you're going to look at one side or the other. And again, it can be used for things like synonyms and so forth. It also must be capitalized. It brings together both those terms on either side of the search. So it's something that can be used to change or broaden your search. Here's an example. This is M asterisk Smith in brackets archaeology or anthropology. I'll come back and expand on more on that. But what it does in this case is I'm looking for a name of a person and I'm looking for it in both the areas of archaeology or anthropology. And if you look down here, this Michael Smith, who happens to be that paper I showed you earlier, he actually is an archaeologist. And if you go down a little further, there's other people here, but you'll notice all of them have this category of the beginning M and something in the middle. Here's another one, Monica Smith. It's another one that Kathy and I have looked at extensively. So I'll say that, but so what, if she's in anthropology, so what we've done in this search is look for people in both anthropology and archaeology with those kinds of names. Here's an example that's showing it again. I mean, you know, this is a search. The asterisk is used to fill in a blank. So it's Charles asterisk Smith. And down here, Google finds Charles U. Smith as fulfilling that category. So asterisk is another thing that can be used to help you when you don't know what's happening. As it turns out, in my case, if I was going to be looking for M. Smith, I would use an asterisk because I'm interested in both those people, Michael and Monica, which is kind of crazy. You can also exclude terms for your search by using not. And you put it immediately before the term you want to exclude, and it's got to be in caps again. So here's LIDAR, Guatemala, not Yucatan. And I've just given you the first one here, but if I kept on going down, searching below this, it would be issues of things that it would give me that were just related to Guatemala and not Yucatan.
So can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Okay, so if I don't want Yucatan, so I just say LIDAR, Guatemala, that's it. Not,
Well, yeah, but if you might get good. That's a good question for a number of things. Google does what it wants to do and what it thinks you want to do. So a lot of times, particularly these types of Boolean searches, don't give you exactly what you want, and that's why you've got to be somewhat flexible. So if you put down LIDAR Guatemala, you might get some things down before because it's looking for LIDAR things that have to do with the Yucatan. In this case, by doing it this way, I'm trying to specifically exclude
Yucatan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
the Yucatan is in Guatemala. So if you want
No, it isn't.
only,
No,
oh, it is?
Yucatan is separate. Yucatan is part of Mexico.
Like
Oh,
Mexico.
it is. Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's not.
And
part
what
of
is LIDAR? Maybe you can explain.
LIDAR is like radar, except it's a different wavelength and so forth, and it's being used extensively now in archaeology, et cetera, around the world, because what it is able to do is penetrate forests.
Oh, okay.
Essentially, when you radar down with LIDAR, it gets through the leaks in the leaves and can see the ground below. So you're able to see, and it's fantastic in jungle areas like Guatemala and Yucatan, where you're looking for old ruins. You can look down through, and there's an enormous number of papers that are out now
Oh,
doing
okay.
this in various parts of the world.
Thank you.
You bet. And I did this above. I'll make an illustration, but if you want to be specific about things, you sometimes can include them in quotes. So if you include, in this case, like ancient cities, it searches for that term within the parentheses first before looking for other things outside. So in this case, I did ancient cities, the one I did before, settlements, and archaeology. And if you begin looking at some of the things down here, these beginning ones in particular have got ancient city, and so forth in them. So it's looking first for that particular thing, so you can help concentrate on what you're looking for by doing this. The bottom one here is the result of LIDAR. Blowing mind, ancient settlements uncovered in the Amazon. That's because of LIDAR. It's also sometimes useful to use exact phrase searching. So if you surround what you're looking for, and the illustration here is ancient cities in Guatemala, and put it in quotation marks, that's phrase searching. And so what Google does is to try to look for that all together as one piece. And if you'll notice down below, the article that was found has inside the article ancient cities in Guatemala, and Google is showing it to you, say it's in there, so you found it in the way it was indicated on your search. This can be very useful in some cases. And in fact, if you don't put the quotes around it, this is what Google gives you. Same thing, except no quotes around cities it gives you interesting cities in Guatemala that you can look at. So it's very clear the two distinctions between the two types of searches.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I really like this idea that you can search inside a document, because it's like really useful when you're trying to find something specific. Can you specify in the search which web page you want it to go to before it searches inside the text? Like if you think you know what document area you want to go to.
I'm not gonna talk about that, but it's one of the things, there are some things called modifiers. I'll show a few modifiers down below, and one of the modifiers that can be used is something called cite. So you can actually say that you want to look at a particular website, for example, for something. Yes, you could do that. I'm not going to talk about it because it's too specialized for, I think, this presentation, but I will send something out that describes that. Does that help?
Thanks. Yeah, that's great.
Here's similar to what you're saying. This is what I was saying. There are modifiers that are available. One of them in particular that's interesting is this modifier that's called file type with a colon afterwards. Okay. If you put that in immediately before the file extension with no space, what it will do is look for that type of file. Okay. And the files that are, there's a whole range of files, but the ones that are commonly used for me and otherwise are like a PDF, a spreadsheet, an image, or a PowerPoint presentation. So you can look for those things in particular. And here's an example, the same one, ancient cities, settlements, archaeology, file type PDF. All these papers are PDFs. In fact, this is the one of the ones by Smith again, that's of interest to us, Kathy and I. But here's the case. These are all PDFs. Now, I'm not going later on, I'll show you how to go in and look at them and things like this. But right now, I'm just showing you that these are, in fact, PDFs. And you can look at the PDF and read it. You can, most cases, save it or print it, whatever you want in that case. You can also look at particular domains. So in this case, site. It's not, there's another word for the one that you're looking for, Brian. I forget what it is, but there's another modifier. In the case of site, what if you publish by the government, it's site : government, edu is educational, org is nonprofits, so forth. Those things will just search in areas relative to those domains that are there. You could exclude one by putting a minus sign in front of it. So -site.com will exclude that particular domain. Now, you don't always find easily what you want with the regular searches. You can use a Google Advanced Search. It's not so bad to use. Actually, I never use it, but because I can do it without doing that. So as I said before, here's one of those previous pages I had. Sitting over here in the corner is this gear. If you click on that gear, you'll get some options. One of those is advanced search. If I click on that advanced search, what I get is this. This is Google's advanced search page. And what it does is it gives you things to fill in the blanks. And you can actually do things in a variety of ways. So you can choose a language, for example, or choose a region. There's a variety of things you can choose, but you can also eliminate, use numbers, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the same thing that you can do without the advanced search, but it gives you some of the hints in terms of doing it. As I said, including even down here, file type. I don't use it. I've never used it in search because I look for what I want otherwise in the process. But there it is, it's there. Now, if let's see, can I, well, anyway, in a minute here. I was going to talk about some of the other Google searches. There's Google Books, for example. It's found, and I already listed this, at this location. The same commands work that are here. There are some options within it to do different types of searches. But for example, here's, what did I say? Chaco Canyon, it's in my, oh, maybe I can put this at the bottom. Anyway, yeah, Chaco Canyon archaeology. I just use that. Another area I've been interested in for many years. And so I just put that in. In fact, sometimes in the search like this, I won't even put in canyon because I know that there are people that commonly will refer to things about Chaco Canyon without using the canyon term. So by not having canyon in there, I broadened it in the process. But in any case, if you were at that search and had clicked on books, okay, what you will get all of a sudden is this, a whole series of things about books relative to Chaco Canyon archaeology. And you see a variety of things in there. It tells you you can find it at this location. It tells you who the author is. It tells you the publication date. There are other editions. You can preview it and so forth. I'll come back at this a little later. I'll show you some things here. But it goes on with other books and so forth that you can find relative to Chaco Canyon and so forth. So this is a real nice feature in terms of when you're looking for things to go off to find out what's written about them. Here's that example. I clicked on that first one. Here's the book that was that first one there. As it turns out, I'll demonstrate this when I go into the open things, but I can look at the table of contents. I can look at the first few pages and so forth. There's a number of things. In some cases, you can find the whole book. I actually was doing this as practice, and I found this book, The Greater Chaco Landscape. It was available through Google free as a PDF, so I got it. So you'll find all kinds of things in this. It's really nice to be able to look at some of these. I'll come back at this later on. There's also an advanced book search within this, and you can see it does it something like the advanced Google search. You can begin specifying things, the author, even the ISBN, if you know what it is. So you can do a very detailed search for things like that. Back to that Chaco Canyon archaeology, there are other things up here to switch as well. Here's where I've clicked on images, and look what I get. Images from Chaco Canyon, and it keeps on going down here. There is a huge number of images that you can find available, and it tells you where they come from. For example, here, in many cases, if you were going to use it in a presentation, you've got a nice one. There are other side things that you can look at up here as well that talk about things like, in this case, Chaco Canyon, also about New Mexico. Bonito is one of the sites within Chaco Canyon. So there's a lot of things you can look at in this. There's also videos. Sometimes they're under more over here, but in this case, videos. So these are all videos that are available. You can click on this. In some cases, it's in YouTube. Some places it's someplace else. This one happens to be in, I don't know, University of New Mexico is where it's at, so forth. So you can find these, you can actually watch them, so forth, which is really nice. Actually, when I was doing this and playing around with it, I don't know if who's I saying here? Clarice is here, but if she is, when I was looking, I stuck something in about Cahokia, and I found a brand new video that just came out about 6 months ago about Cahokia. Anyway, I enjoy searching, as you might guess by listening to me. I enjoy finding new things and finding out new information. And then there's the maps one. So here's a click on the maps one. Again, it's Chaco Canyon, and this shows the map of Chaco Canyon, at least a detailed map. You can do the normal things, blowing it up and so forth. I've been there twice in my life, so I've been to these places. I know where they're talking about them, but there's a lot of other information you can find off of that in terms of looking for things map-wise. I also tried over here, when I was doing that, I clicked back over here at all, and I got this interesting thing. It's saying, oh, here, what do you want to know about scholarly articles for Chaco Canyon archaeology? Well, I was going to talk about that anyway, so this was very appropriate. If you click on that, this is what you get. And what it's done is it's brought me to something called Google Scholar, which is a fantastic Google searching device. And I've got a, actually, it's scholar.google.com. It's easy to find. And all these things are related to academic or publication kind of things. So for example, here's a book written by this man in 1981. And so I could go ahead and look at that. It gives more information about it. Here's another book that has this. Here's The Architecture of Chaco Canyon, a book. Lixon, he's a very famous, well-known one. As it turns out, over here, look at that. It says there's a PDF available. It comes from Swarthmore College, but the PDF is there. If I were to click on this, and I'll demonstrate that later on, I'll get the PDF in front of me of this particular article. Fantastic ways to do this. So if I go to the next thing, talking about Google Scholar, there it is, scholar.google.com. What they've done is to make agreements with various publishers, et cetera, to search things that they normally can't search in many cases. So this lets you go into certain databases and lets you find things that are primarily related to scholarly publications. And there's conference proceedings, reports, et cetera. So this is a great tool for things that are academically search-oriented kind of stuff. I use it all the time. It's the same kind of searching, the same things that are there with a couple of exceptions. There's a couple of more modifiers that can be used. One is in title. You can use that to find a word in a document. Or you can use author to find articles by the author's name. So again, very nice, convenient ways of searching for things. So it gives you a lot of things that relate to the things, but in particular, what's important is that sometimes you can find PDFs available, but other times it lets you begin improving your searches by finding out who the people are or what the publications are, et cetera. Now, some of these you can find by going to our local academic libraries. All of us have privileges at the academic libraries. And if you go there, there's a good chance you'll be able to search some of these things in publications to actually find the PDFs that are available. So here I did this one again, Chaco Canyon Archaeology. It shows these things. Again, as I pointed out, there's a PDF here. But notice as well, you can do things like searching over time. You can search recently or farther ago or a custom range of times. You can search by relevance or by date. I typically do it by relevance, although if I flicked on this, it would be interesting to see what was there. You can look at any type of article or review articles. So it's a nice way to be able to go at things. And in doing this, what I find is you begin going in and going to some of these sites and looking at the references, et cetera, to be able to chase down more of what you're looking for on a particular item. Here's an example. Out of that search, I found this particular paper. And I'm not going to show it all here, but it is the complete paper here that represents that article, and you can read it. You can print it if you want to. Here's another one. Abstracts almost always you get. Sometimes you will come down below here and find out that you have to have library privileges at an appropriate library to read the article, which means like UMass or Amherst College, Smith College. Almost every place around here, all of our colleges have access to all these journals. So with that, I'm going to come back other things now, questions that I might have gone by too briefly, first of all, but I'm going to come back. Yeah, you can see this over here now. You can see it, right?
Yeah.
On my webpage. Now this is live in the process now. So I go in here and I can see things like this, ASU. I look at things in the references and so forth about places like that to be able to chase down locations to look at. I mean, in many cases, you have to guess to be able to decide on things, but I find things quite commonly that way by just being more aggressive in terms of what the searches are.
Mhm.
So all I can say, you can bear down farther. For example, what do I want? I'm going to pick on one here. I'll go away from. So there, I clicked on one of those things that was there, and this is what it gives me. This is this is interesting because this book is available. I was going to share it with people in my seminar. The whole book is available. So here it is. It lists what it is and so forth. You can go over here and suggest I want to look at a preview of it. There's the book, and I can begin going down through. There's the introduction to it. There's the title page. There's the table of contents. Going through. As it turns out, this whole thing is available. If I was to keep on going down, I'm going to go down way down. It came back again. This whole thing is available in terms of things. So it is interesting to see what you can see under these cases and get access anyway. So, again, part of this has to do with trying to search and look at the literature in terms of finding that out. So that's part of your answer, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, on that topic, like it's almost certain that as we speak, there's a conference somewhere in the world that some professional, academic organization is putting on one of those ancient cities. So
look I could click this since 2022. These are the papers that have come out in 2022.
right.
And you're going to probably find some of these in terms of conferences. I haven't done that particular one with this in the case, but a lot of these have PDFs. Well, let's see what we find under review articles. Some of them are the same.
Mhm.
I don't see one right now, but it is not unusual to find conference kind of things.
Mhm.